Needless to say, tornadoes are amongst the most destructive natural disasters in the world. No country on Earth is immune to them, and some bear the worst of it more than others. They occur every year, and while some of them are just small twisters and last a few minutes, others can grow enormous and last hours.
What you're seeing are two actual tornadoes.
Even days. Welcome back to Forever Green. Before we go on, make sure you have subscribed to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. Today, we're going to take a look at the top 15. One particular storm has lasted years. Keep watching to find out which. Without further ado, let's take a look at number 15. Joplin Tornado. The 2011 Joplin tornado was one of the worst tornadoes to strike the US. It was rated F5 on the Fujita scale. It intensified and grew larger at an alarming rate. It was the deadliest tornado since the Glacier-Higgins-Woodward tornado outbreak. And it also ranks as the costliest tornado in history, with the insurance payouts reaching a whopping $2.8 billion. Number 14. Woodward, Oklahoma, 1947, and 181 dead. A series of tornadoes conceived from a single supercell swept through Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas in 1947. It was called the Glacier-Higgins-Woodward tornadoes. 6 people died when the tornado swept away farms in 3 towns. The tornado was 2 miles wide and destroyed 100 city blocks. It gradually reduced as it moved to Woods County. It left damages exceeding $5 million in its wake. Number 13. Flint Beecher Tornado. Rated an F5 tornado on the Fujita scale, this tornado touched down in Genesee County in Michigan and traveled 18.9 miles. It left 116 deaths and 844 injured in its wake, not to mention $17 million in losses. This happened in 1953, so that amount equals about $165 million in 2020. Most of the damage was dealt in the suburban communities of Beecher in the north of Flint. This was one of 8 that occurred in the same day in Michigan and Ohio, and part of a larger outbreak now termed the Flint-Worcester tornado outbreak, getting stronger and stronger as it traveled. And if you think that's insane, you'll definitely want to hang around for the number 1 biggest tornado. Number 12. Faridpur and Dhaka districts in Bangladesh. Bangladesh features quite a lot on this list, as it is one of the tornado-prone areas in the world. Every year, for the first 3 weeks of April, Bangladesh faces heavy winds, floods, torrential downpours, and tornadoes. They are pretty unusual in March, so this one took them by surprise. Even more unusual, this one was a part of a tornado outbreak in 1961. Indicating that a violent season was coming in April to the region. This tornado caused the death of 210 people. Number 11. Tupelo, Mississippi. You'll find that Mississippi shows up a lot too, and that's because it's one of the most disaster-prone areas in the country. It was one in a series of tornadoes in 1936. Although the outbreak was centered in this area, other destructive tornadoes of the same family struck the states of Tennessee, South Carolina, and Georgia. This even gave rise to flash floods, causing millions of dollars worth of damages. Many homes near Gum Pond were swept into the pond with families still huddled inside, and records say it leveled 48 blocks. Among the survivors of this tornado were Number 10, St. Louis, Missouri. It is quite rare for the core of a city to be hit directly by a tornado of this size, but several have made their way through St. Louis throughout history. Some recorded disasters have been the 1871 tornado that killed 9 people, another in 1890 which killed 4 people, one in 1958 which killed 21, and more. This makes St. Louis the most tornado-affected urban areas in America. The 1896 tornado season in particular was intense. This season was one of the deadliest the US had seen, comprising of 40 killer tornadoes between 11th April and 26th November. The F4 tornado in St. Louis spawned from a supercell and carved a 1-mile wide path of destruction as it tore through the town. The confirmed death count was 255, with 5,000 people left homeless. The death count, however, doesn't include those who might have been washed away by the river. Some estimate the total count to be 400, but we may never know. At the time, this city was one of the largest and most influential in America.
Hardest hit areas of the city were the Lafayette Square and Compton Heights neighborhoods, with 12,000 buildings razed to the ground. Some poor areas like Mill Creek Valley also suffered from it. Suffice to say, this incident permanently changed the development and construction of residential, commercial, and industrial complexes in the area. Number 9. Natchez in Mississippi. This tornado was retroactively listed as an F5. It formed in Natchez and followed the Mississippi River, clearing forest on both sides of the river. It occurred in 1840, and after passing Mississippi, the vortex struck the river port of Natchez Landing, where it capsized the boats docked there and drowned the crew and passengers. From there, it moved into the town, and it was reported that the air was black with whirling eddies of walls, roofs, chimneys, and huge timbers from distant ruins, shot through the air as if they were thrown from a catapult. Several buildings and crops were completely destroyed. The final death toll was recorded at 48 on land and 269 on the river port, but it's possible there could have been more. In addition to the 317 deaths, the tornado also caused a damage of $1,260,000. It may not sound like much, but this was in 1840, which means the losses amount to about $37.8 million in 2020. Number 8. Belinatiski, Ivanova, in Russia. The 1984 Soviet Union tornado outbreak was one of 11 disastrous tornado outbreaks in Russian history, and the third deadliest in the history of Europe. This tornado struck the Ivanova and Yaroslavl regions in northern Moscow, an area spanning 400,000 square kilometers. 2 of the 11 tornadoes were violent events, equaling F4 or possibly higher on the Fujita scale. And the main tornado hit F5. It was 500 meters wide and caused much more damage. Heavy objects of about 320 tons were thrown at a distance of 300 meters by these winds. And it was strong enough to disintegrate steel-reinforced concrete. Severe thunderstorms dropped hail weighing about 2.2 pounds. The entire outbreak killed 69 people and left 804 injured. Number 7. Yangtze River in China. On the 1st of June 2015, the Oriental Star River cruise ship was traveling on the Yangtze River in China when an F1 tornado hit. The ship overturned with 454 people on board, and 442 people lost their lives. The ship sank about 15 meters due to a downburst. Rescue operations started the next day, and workers recovered 39 bodies from the ship and found a few others washed up ashore. There were still over 300 people unaccounted for, and authorities spent the entire day searching and debating if they should right the ship so they could search on board. There was also the issue that cutting a hole in the ship would cause trapped air to escape and just make the vessel sink faster. The last of the survivors were found on the 13th of June, mostly in their late 60s or early 70s. Rescue teams found bodies washed up ashore as far as 220 kilometers away from the site. Number 6. Bangladesh, formerly called East Pakistan. The 1970 Bolha cyclone formed over the central bay of Bengal and traveled north, intensifying as it moved. It reached its peak with wind speeds of 115 miles per hour and struck East Pakistan, which is present-day Bangladesh, and West Bengal on the 11th of November. The storm devastated several offshore islands and wiped out villages and crops, severely affecting the regions of Upazila and Tazumuddin. At least 500,000 deaths were recorded, but even that number remains uncertain. Number 5. Sicily in Italy. Tornadoes are quite rare in Italy. And even if they do occur, they don't cause quite the amount of damage they cause in the States or places like Bangladesh. But in late November of 1851, 2 tornadoes swept the Marsala countryside in western Sicily and moved to the northeast, sweeping right through the town with half of Castellamare destroyed and 200 people killed. Along the path, they left heavy rains and massive thunderstorms, causing more damage to the farmlands. The total number of deaths from the tragedy is still unknown, but it is believed to be 500. Number 4. Daulapur, Saturia, Bangladesh. As we've seen, Bangladesh is no stranger to extreme weather conditions. The Ganges Basin is close and frequented by severe weather, especially in monsoon months. An average of 6 tornadoes occur every year in the country, with peak activity in April. Despite the frequency, there have still been some that manage to surprise the population. The Daulatpur Saturia tornado on 1989 was the deadliest in the history of the country, killing approximately 1,300 people. Though not the biggest tornado in the world, it was certainly the deadliest given the number of casualties. It started in Daulatpur in the east, before moving to Saturia in the northwest, where the people were already suffering from a severe 6-month drought. The devastation was so complete that aside from some bare trees, everything was razed to the ground. 80,000 people found themselves homeless in the aftermath, and soon after a second tornado struck the nearby Darsingi district, which killed 5 people and injured 500 others. Number 3. Tri-State Tornado US. The most exceptional of the 12 traveled through Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana, and killed 695 people. The 235-mile track left by the storm as it crossed the states is also the longest ever recorded. Though the Fujita scale was not around at the time, it has been estimated to be an F5 tornado with wind speeds of over 300 miles per hour. One reason for the high fatality rate could be that the weather reports, in an effort to minimize panic, avoided using the word tornado to describe the event, and even the weather report given for the day was normal. As a result, the tornado caught everyone by complete tornadoes in this video, and I'm willing to bet it's pretty impossible to be that close to one and take a photo without being immediately swept up and thrown a few miles with your car, and possibly even your house. We're going to have to call it. It's photoshopped. But here's something equally bizarre and interesting. Number 2. 400-year-old hurricane 3 times the size of Earth. Hurricanes are not an occurrence only on our planet. Many planets in our solar system face all kinds of weather phenomena. It might seem like Earth has the worst of it.
What can you see? Is anyone hurt?
But it's nothing compared to what most other planets have. Mars, for example, has giant dust storms that can coat the entire planet for weeks. Saturn has acid rains. And Neptune has incredible wind speeds of 1,200 miles per hour. But we're going to look at Jupiter, which has been experiencing a massive storm for nearly 400 years now. This famous megastorm almost dates back to when Galileo first picked up a telescope and spotted its moons in the 1600s. It's 3 times the size of the Earth, and winds rise up to 400 miles per hour. The size of this storm is called the Great Red Spot, and it's not the only place with extreme weather. Pretty much the entire surface is violent with massive hurricanes, winds, thunder, and lightning. Just be glad we don't have El Reno tornado. The El Reno tornado was a rain-wrapped, multiple vortex tornado occurring over the rural areas of central Oklahoma in 2013. It was the widest ever recorded in history, and was a part of a larger weather system that produced dozens of tornadoes in the days leading up to the big one. It stayed in more open terrains, so the impact on buildings and other structures was less, but radars picked up extreme wind speeds of 302 miles per hour, and a width of 2.6 miles, but still significant in some locations. It dealt the damage of an F3 tornado, with the livestock market in particular looking like a war zone. The total damage from the tragedy racked up to $40 million US. Well, that's it for the 15 biggest tornadoes